As an educational institution and as teachers, we have the opportunity to create new learning spaces in this renovation to carry our school through the 21st century. We must examine the learning spaces that affect teaching and learning, not just for now, but into the future as well. We must also look beyond the physical learning spaces and develop a greater understanding of them and how they influence the physical. We must, as this is the 21st century, remember that technology is key to many learning spaces. Teachers in these newly developed spaces must have the professionalism to be resourceful and productive in these spaces, in their design, layout and flexibility. However, what we must remember when designing new learning spaces are factors such as the learners, the curriculum, the pedagogy and the abilities of the teachers within the given spaces. For many students and teachers, the majority of their waking hours are spent at school, and as such our school should be a place that encourages learning and teaching at the highest level. Our classrooms and our school itself are key learning spaces and as such must be integrated in their use and their purpose. In her 2010 research, Marilyn Reed showed that children have a much deeper understanding of their environment and how it influences their learning than previously thought. Her research also showed that children have a great awareness of how colour, shape and form influence their learning. However, students in her studies had rarely, if ever, been asked to contribute to the design and layout of learning spaces. With our approaching renovations, we should seriously consider the input of the students who will be occupying the space. Also, after completing the renovation, students need to be involved in the setting out of classroom displays and images. This had also been demonstrated in Reed's research. Of course, the classroom teacher will need to be mindful of other factors when managing learning spaces. The teacher must consider seating locations, as well as student hearing, vision, or other limiting factors, and even language background. But whatever the classroom layout, be it teacher-centred or student-centred, traditional or interactive through modern technology, the learning space chosen will have a direct influence on the students within it for many years to come. Excursions and incursions, and even communities of practice are a great way to explore and discover learning in a context where students and teachers can gain new experiences and reflect on them. The upcoming renovation allows us the chance to design a space suitable for displays, demonstrations and learning. Larvin Wenger commented on learning needing to be based on knowledge and learning in context and its relevance to the learner. By designing spaces to use for incursions in communities of practice, teachers and schools are better able to meet the learning needs of students by providing them with tools and strategies, for example computer PLNs, to undertake this learning. Carl Rogers says that learning is enhanced when these students are fully involved in the learning process. By having invited guests and performers in the learning spaces, children have a heightened opportunity to learn, introducing the students to PLNs that allow them to learn independently in consultation with the teacher. As technology is rapidly and ever-changing, the learning space itself is ever-changing as well. Our students are already coming to school with various skills to interact with the online global community, especially using iPads and other tablets, mobile phones and personal computers. School learning spaces have evolved to take advantage of this prior knowledge and to develop it. As part of our renovation, we must consider the application of technology in our new learning space. Spaces should be able to be reconfigured to suit class needs. Classes also need regular access to technological devices. Classrooms require interactive whiteboards and access to the banks of iPads or laptops. According to UNESCO, the electronic learning space is growing rapidly to take advantage of the expanding mobile networks in third world countries. We can take advantage of programs developed for this by careful and judicious use of apps and devices, and students can receive interactive support and communication. Their main value comes when they are presented in effective, outcomes-based ways. Part of our renovation strategy must also be in the professional development of our staff, to enable them to use this newly developed space successfully and productively. Without this, the interactive whiteboard becomes a widescreen TV, and the iPads little more than expensive babysitters. With the professional development of our teachers, the lessons we can provide for our students could be limitless. Correct application of technology in the new learning spaces means that students would have enhanced access to e-communities and the content of their learning can become more personal and beneficial. The electronic learning spaces make impossible content in lessons both reachable and fruitful. Every individual learning space is all about learning. We have to ask a number of questions as we design our new learning spaces, such as, how does an individual learn? What determines the learning? At what point do the students learn? And where does the learning take place? We use the taxonomy of learning to categorise the understandings. An individual learning space puts much of the onus on the learner to take control of and plan their learning. Being self-motivated or self-directed is key to individual learning. As Alan Tuff says, learners assumed responsibility for planning and directing the course of study. The individual learning space is exactly the place for this to occur. Teachers must realise that students have to be given the opportunity to engage in their own self-directed learning. The students must feel supported and guided, but not directed. The teacher should be able to move easily throughout the space, asking questions and engaging learning as an informant and an agitator. Due to restrictions imposed by curriculum, this is not always possible, but as we race forwards through the 21st century, we need to change our educational focus from teacher-centred to student-centred. As curriculum itself is a learning space, it is adaptable, and in the case of individual learning spaces, the school's scope and sequence needs to be flexible too. This flexibility ensures that children are not left behind due to their lack of interest or inability to fit within the rigid curriculum. There are several components that define the group learning space, and a major one of these is curriculum. Most teachers clearly understand curriculum in that it is an overview for teaching and learning over a long period of time. As part of our renovation of our learning spaces, we need to remember that curriculum can be varied. Through collaboration over time with other teachers, our curriculum can meet the needs of our students by remaining up to date and relevant. If teachers continue to see the curriculum as a learning space in this manner, they will be able to focus on more cooperative and collaborative learning in the renovated space. When we think of these types of learning, there is the distinction that cooperative learning has a set task and goal, whilst collaborative tends to have a starting point, but less of a determined learning path, which is determined more by the knowledge and desires of the learners. With the array of technology that our new learning space could have, the limits for collaborative learning amongst our students could be endless. Interactions between students, teachers and others allows for extended knowledge and its delivery. This would allow the lessons delivered in our new space to be self-motivating, purposeful and constantly changing. It appears that, for learning spaces in the future, there is no magic formula for coming up with the perfect design. For our new renovated spaces, we must look at all of the factors that make up the needs of the individual children in the classes at the beginning of the school year, and as the year progresses with all of the learning that takes place. Our learning space needs to be dynamic, yet sustainable, energetic, yet unpredictable. It is important for us to remember our place in the environment as we contemplate renovation. Our technology, whilst a vital part of our renovation, comes at an environmental cost. Our modern learning space comes at a price. The materials used to produce our devices come from mining and resource refining, and the impact that this has. Learning in the 21st century will be more about how students interact with each other in their PLNs, the use of technology, and interpersonal contact in the confines of a flexible curriculum learning space within a flexible, comfortable and functional physical space. This is the space that we must provide as the product of our renovation, a gift not just to the classes of today, but the classes who will inhabit this space into the future.